Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Pakistan's Air Force has launched retaliatory airstrikes on Iran as tension continues to escalate across the region. 9 people were reportedly killed in Iran, including 3 women and 4 children. Pakistan said these strikes targeted separatist militants based near the Iran-Pakistan border. The attack came a day after Iran bombed members of the Sunni militant group Jaish al-Adl in the Pakistani province of Balochistan. On Wednesday, Iran's foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, acknowledged Iran had carried out recent bombings in both Pakistan and Iraq.
پاسخ ما روی تروریست‌های ایرانی در داخل خاک.
Our focus is on the Iranian terrorists on Pakistani soil. Before this conversation, I discussed with my colleague, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, that we respect the integrity of Pakistan. We respect the integrity of Iraq, but we will not allow them to play with the security of our country.
The U.S. military has attacked Yemen for the 4th time in a week, launching ship and submarine missile strikes on Houthi-controlled areas Wednesday. The attack came a day after the Biden administration redesignated the Houthis, who rule much of Yemen, as a global terrorist group. The Houthis have been disrupting global shipping routes by carrying out attacks in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden in an attempt to pressure Israel to halt its bombardment of Gaza. Meanwhile, U.S. forces are continuing to search for 2 U.S. Navy SEALs who were lost at sea off the coast of Somalia last week after a group of Navy SEALs stopped a ship allegedly containing Iranian-made missile parts. In Gaza, at least 16 Palestinians, including many children, have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on a home in Rafah, which has been designated by Israel as a so-called safe zone. The families killed had reportedly come to Rafah for safety after being displaced 3 times over the past 100 days. One relative told Al Jazeera, quote, they fled their homes in Gaza City to the Barej refugee camp to Khan Yunis before coming to Rafah because they thought it was safer. The grandmother of the children killed in the Israeli attack spoke outside the bombed-out house.
I was in the school when the strike happened at dawn, and I came running. I found the rubble. I went to the hospital and found all my grandchildren have been martyred. All of them are young children. The biggest one is in 2nd grade, and the rest are even younger. What have they done wrong?
Meanwhile, in Gaza City, rescuers raced to a home where Palestinian children were buried under rubble after an Israeli attack.
In this house, there's children. We're trying to get them out since the morning. With every attempt, airstrikes and rockets fall on us. Our neighbors from the Al-Madbouli family came to help us. The first 2 who went in were martyred. What sin did those children commit to die like that? The number of those who were inside the house is more than 25 people. They were all martyred. The whole house collapsed on them completely, as you can see. More than 1 missile hit this area. This area was shelled by many missiles at the same time.
In other news from Gaza, Israel's blown up Isra University south of Gaza City. According to a post on the school's Facebook page, Israeli troops had seized the campus months ago, turned it into a military base where Israel interrogated detained Palestinians. There are reports Israel's killed another journalist in Gaza. Palestinian news outlets report Wael Fanouna, the manager of Al-Quds Today TV, was killed today in an Israeli bombing in Gaza City. Over 110 journalists have been killed since Israel began its assault on Gaza following the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. On Wednesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called again for a ceasefire in Gaza.
I repeat my call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza and a process that leads to sustained peace for Israelis and Palestinians based on a 2-state solution. That is the only way to stem the suffering and prevent a spillover that could send the entire region up in flames.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have killed at least 10 Palestinians in a series of military raids. Israel launched airstrikes on the Tulkarm refugee camp and the Balata refugee camp as ground troops conducted extensive raids. The Palestinian Red Crescent accused Israeli troops of blocking ambulances from reaching the Tulkarm refugee camp, which has been under siege for over 30 hours. In Britain, the House of Commons has approved legislation to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda, even if they have no ties to the African country. The bill declares Rwanda is a safe country for asylum seekers, despite a recent UK Supreme Court ruling saying the opposite. The bill is expected to face opposition in the House of Lords, where one member has described the legislation as a, quote, step towards totalitarianism. In Washington, D.C., President Biden met with congressional leaders at the White House Wednesday in a bid to break through deadlocked negotiations on Biden's request for $100 billion in supplemental military funding for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he was optimistic about a possible deal following the meeting, while House Speaker Mike Johnson doubled down on House Republican demands to further crack down on immigration, saying the proposed Senate deal is, quote, dead in the House. In related news, Texas has defied a Biden administration cease and desist order, refusing to dismantle its border barrier near the city of Eagle Pass on the Rio Grande. Texas troopers took over the 2.5-mile stretch last week, installing fencing, gates, and razor wire. On Friday, a mother and her 2 children, aged 8 and 10, drowned in the Rio Grande after Border Patrol agents were denied access to the area by Texas officials acting under orders from Republican Governor Greg Abbott. In Ecuador, a prosecutor who was investigating a recent attack on a TV station has been assassinated. Cesar Suarez was killed in the city of Guayaquil on Wednesday. This comes less than 2 weeks after Ecuador's president, Daniel Noboa, declared a state of emergency due to a surge in violence by drug cartels. In recent days, the slain prosecutor, Cesar Suarez, had interviewed 13 gunmen who stormed a live TV set earlier this month and took the staff hostage on air. The U.S. State Department has barred former Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei from entering the United States over his involvement in, quote, significant corruption. The decision was announced just days after Giammattei left office. Early on Monday, Guatemala's new president, Bernardo Arévalo, was sworn in despite efforts by Guatemala's attorney general, conservative lawmakers, and the elite ruling class who spent months trying to prevent his presidency. Arévalo was elected in August after running on an anti-corruption platform. In the United States, the judge in E. Jean Carroll's defamation trial threatened to expel former President Donald Trump from the courtroom Wednesday for repeatedly disrupting the proceedings. Trump could be heard loudly telling his attorney that the trial was a witch hunt and a con job. Trump's disruptions came as the writer E. Jean Carroll took the stand and accused Trump of shattering her reputation. A trial last year found Trump had sexually abused E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s and then defamed her. At this new trial, a different jury is determining if Trump owes her more money for other acts of defamation. Trump's trial is occurring just ahead of New Hampshire's Republican primary Tuesday, the first primary in the nation. On Wednesday, ABC canceled its New Hampshire Republican debate after former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley refused to participate if Trump did not take part as well. Trump has so far declined to debate any of his Republican challengers. Haley's facing criticism this week after claiming the United States was never a racist country. She made the comment during an interview on Fox News.
Are you a racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country.
Haley's comment comes just weeks after she failed to mention slavery as one of the causes of the U.S. Civil War. In other campaign news, a judge in Maine has suspended a decision by the state's Secretary of State to remove Donald Trump from the primary ballot for violating the insurrectionist clause of the 14th Amendment. The judge said the U.S. Supreme Court should weigh in on Trump's eligibility first. The High Court is hearing oral arguments February 8th. The conservative-led Supreme Court Wednesday heard arguments in a case that threatens to severely restrict the regulatory authority of federal agencies on issues ranging from environmental protection to guns to health care. The case centers around the Chevron deference, a precedent established in 1984 which requires courts to defer to an agency's interpretation of laws. Fishing companies are challenging the doctrine, long maligned by corporations and the right. The legal effort is backed by far-right interest groups, including the network of billionaire Charles Koch. Liberal Justice Elena Kagan defended the practice, saying, quote, "And it's best to defer to people who do know, who have had long experience on the ground, who have seen 1,000 of these kinds of situations," Kagan said, adding, "And, you know, judges should know what they don't know," unquote. A ruling by the Supreme Court's expected in the summer. In a major antitrust ruling, a federal judge in Boston's blocked the merger of JetBlue and Spirit Airlines, saying the merger would hurt consumers. In his ruling, Judge William Young wrote, quote, "The airline industry is an oligopoly that has become more concentrated due to a series of mergers," unquote. Last year, the Department of Justice in 6 states sued to stop the merger. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has proposed a rule that could drastically lower overdraft charges at the nation's largest banks. If approved, many bank customers could see their overdraft fees drop from about $35 to as little as $3. The agency estimates the new rule could save households up to $3.5 billion annually. Banking trade groups have decried the proposed rule changes. A new study finds Greenland's ice cap is losing an average of 30 million tons of ice every hour due to the effects of the climate crisis. Researchers with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory published their findings in the journal Nature, which show the ice loss is 20% greater than previously thought. Scientists fear the additional fresh water pouring into the North Atlantic could lead to a collapse of ocean currents, which would trigger devastating disruptions to global weather patterns, ecosystems, and food security. And Azerbaijan, the host country of this year's UN Climate Summit in December, has come under fire after it unveiled its organizing committee for COP29, made up of 28 men and no women. The group, She Changes Climate, blasted the regressive decision, they said, saying, quote, "Climate change affects the whole world, not half of it," unquote. The organizing committee does, however, include oil and gas executives. Early this month, Azerbaijan's environmental minister, Mukhtar Babayev, was named as COP29's president. He previously spent 26 years at the state oil company of the Azerbaijan Republic, or SOCAR. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.